Hello there, I'm Jamie. Welcome to another session of Vista Explore Services. This course is a follow-up of photorealistic lighting with 3ds Max and Vray, where the lights and the materials have already been set up. I will quickly take you through the amazing process of turning a daylight scene into a night one. To follow this course, you need to open 3ds Max file under the name of house outside night _j_start. Let's start by deleting the V-Ray sunlight. Next, open the render setup dialog. As you can see, the render output size is already low, so from this point onwards we'll simply start with test renders. Before we start, let's quickly check some of the V-Ray settings. Most of the settings are draft as they should be for test renders. For the purpose of these test renders, we're going to deactivate the render elements. The first light that we're going to create is the dome light. To do so, we're going to the Create panel and Lights. Under Photometric type, choose V-Ray from the list. In the V-Ray object type, click on the V-Ray light button and go to the top viewport. Plain lights are best to be created in the top viewport. Simply click and drag to create it. To turn this light into a dome type, simply open the Modify panel and change the plane type to a dome. The dome light will be used to emulate the diffuse shadows often seen at night. Before we go any further, let's open the photo reference in 3ds Max to be used as guide to quickly achieve the results we are aiming for. To bring up the photo reference, simply click on the Rendering tab and choose the View Image File option from the list. In the photo reference folder, you can see many of the photos found on Pinterest. In the end, the client chose this one as a photo reference. This photo reference encapsulates everything we intend to create. The blue tones from the dome light affecting indirectly lit areas, and the yellowish artificial lights contrast in the blue. The next step is to match the scene's dome light color with a photo reference. To do so, simply click on the dome light color swatch to open the color selector dialog. Enable the sample screen color and pick the blue tones from the photo reference. Next, we're going to do a quick test render to see how the dome light and the blue tones are affecting the scene. We can clearly see how the dome light is affecting the scene. The next step is to quickly cancel the render and make further tweaks. The overall render is looking closer to the photo reference, however, it's not quite there yet. One quick way of matching colors is to ensure white colors have a similar tone to the photo reference. To do so, we are going to increase the multiplier value of the dome light to about 80 and do another quick test render. The dome light effect in the overall scene is now similar to the photo reference. Let's stop the render and make further tweaks. Next, under the options roller, we're going to make the dome light invisible to the camera, not to affect the specular and reflections. Dome lights are not complementary to reflections and specular. The next step is to start adding artificial lights in the scene. Before we start creating artificial lights, let's take a quick look at the photo reference. As you can see, there are artificial lights against the plants and objects, which is making the photo reference very appealing. We'll try to emulate the same effect in 3ds Max. As previously done, let's create a plain V-Ray light. Under Lights, click on the V-Ray light button, followed by clicking and dragging it on the top viewport to create it. Make sure the light is rectangular and not too big. Rename the light as Vray light _ square. As mentioned earlier, it's good practice to name the lights accordingly. The next step is to align the new light along the plants. To do it properly, we're going to select few plants with the light, followed by isolating them. Select and move the light close to the plant and rotate it slightly upwards. This way, the light will wash the plants and the walls simultaneously. Next, we're going to open the Modify panel and scale down the light to fit the height of the plant. Also, let's reduce the multiplier to about 20, make it invisible to the camera and not to affect the reflections. In addition, let's make the light color slightly yellow like the photo reference. The following step is to unisolate the scene and create instances of the same light across the scene. Instances can also be scaled without affecting other objects in the scene by simply using the scale from the toolbar. Once all the lights have been created, do another quick test render. Also, refer to the final 3ds Max scene house outside night _J_ final to see where the lights were positioned. The render is gradually improving. However, the sky seems a bit too bright for a night scene. The next step is to tweak the exposure control and load up a sky image in Environment Map. Let's start by clicking on the Rendering tab and opening the Environment dialog. To make the overall scene a bit darker, increase the shutter speed to about 400 and the ISO to about 120. To load up a sky image in Environment Map, open the Material Editor first. Create a new material slot by dragging and dropping it. Also, rename it as Sky Color. In the Environment and Effects dialog, clear the current Vray sky map and click on its toggle. In the Material Browser dialog, expand the map's rollout and choose the texture CG Skies _0199. To find this bitmap, simply Google CG Textures. cgtextures.com is one of the biggest texture resources around the world. Simply type in the bitmap you're looking for and choose the bitmap in question. Once the bitmap is loaded, to edit it, simply drag and drop it into the new Material Editor. Choose to instance the bitmap, so future changes will affect both the Material Editor and the Environment Map. In the Coordinates parameters, increase the U tiling to about 3.0, the V tiling to about 1.3, and the V offset to about 0.63. Double click on its thumbnail to preview the changes. Next, we're going to make the bitmap slightly brighter with a color correction procedural map. Click on the bitmap toggle and choose the color correction from the browser dialog. Choose to keep old map as submap. Next, we're going to increase the saturation to about 70.1. Also, scroll down to the output rollout and increase the RGB level to about 50 to brighten up the bitmap. The following step is to start adding lights inside the houses and along the streets. Let's start by restricting the selection to lights only. This way, we will not select any objects by accident. Create another light as previously done and change the type to disk. Also, change the radius value to about 281 mm. Next, place the first disk light on the first floor of the main building. Make sure the light is over the two chairs and table next to the window. It's common practice to place artificial lights next to windows. Clone the light by holding down the Shift key and moving it to the right. Choose the Instance option and OK to close the dialog box. Clone another light and move it inside the house next door. Enable the viewport edge faces for better preview of the objects in the scene. Clone another light next to it. Next, clone a series of instance lights next to the trees, under the lamppost, next to the cars, and along the street. Scale some of the lights next to the camera. The next step is to change the light color to yellowish. Let's use the photo reference as guide to match the yellow lights. Also, decrease the multiplier to about 7.0. Make sure the lights are invisible to the camera and not affecting the reflections. Let's do another quick test render. For a more accurate assessment of how the lights are behaving in this scene, we're going to add many V-Ray light select elements. We'll be using the same script previously seen in the daylight version of this scene. First, let's open the Render Setup dialog. Open the Render Elements tab and switch on the Elements Active function. As previously done, click on the button of the script Auto V-Ray Light Select. In the dialog, choose the All Lights in the Scene option and click on Create Elements button below. Never choose the option to create as one element, as this will add all lights in the scene into one V-Ray Light Select element. V-Ray Light Select element works best when an element is created for each light individually, not as a group. As you can see, each V-Ray Light Select element is being created individually, automatically. Let's do another quick test render. While the render is taking place, you can quickly check how each render element is looking. There, you can see one of the V-Ray Light Select elements. All these elements will be boosted up in post. Let's bring up the photo reference to compare it against the latest render. Turn on and off the display colors in sRGB space. Let's check again how some of the render elements are affecting the scene. Before sending the final render, in a Common tab, increase the render output size to about 3500 by 1750. In the V-Ray tab, enable the V-Ray raw image file. This function is very useful to automatically save the renders if the computer crashes. You can save the raw files as EXR or Deep EXR. Also, enable the resumable rendering option. This option allows unfinished renders to be continued later in the day or days after the render was manually stopped or crashed. V-Ray will start rendering exactly from where the last bucket was saved. However, the pre-rendering calculation will be computed fully. Following that, enable the Separate Render Channels option and set the file name as House Outside and choose the file type as TIFF. TIFF files are one of the best file formats for high-resolution renders. Click on the Setup toggle and set the image type as 16-bit color with no compression and 300 dpi. Next, open the GI tab. In Irradiance Map Parameters, change the current preset to medium and keep the remaining settings. This preset should be sufficient for external scenes. Under the ambient occlusion, increase the subdivisions to about 24. The value of 24 will smooth out any potential noise artifacts. In a light cache, increase the subdivisions to about 1000. Again, this value should be okay for most external scenes. Next, open the Vray tab and scroll down to the bucket image sampler settings. Increase the max subdivision values to about 6 and the noise threshold to about 0.003. The noise threshold parameters are a bit counterintuitive, as lower values increase the quality. Always double check the render settings before sending the final renders. The final render should look similar to this one. Before closing down the max file, always open the main render in Photoshop to see if the render looks similar to what we're seeing in 3ds Max. Sometimes the gamma display might look different outside 3ds Max, in which case simply resave the renders in Max with a gamma set to 2.2. This concludes our night rendering course with 3ds Max and Vray. The following course will take you through the amazing process of turning this render into this one in post-production. I can't wait to show you how.